Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream where we have a new shader node to play around with in Blender 5.1. And you may be wondering, oh, what is this right here? This is the X-ray skeleton arm that I made using the new raycast node, which is in 5.1, and the Blender devs wanted it on Blender's official demo website. So I put the link in the chat so that you could go and download it and play around with it yourself. So yep, it's available on Blender's website right now, so I would recommend picking it up, and remember it is for Blender 5.1 or newer. So let's go and take a look at the setup inside of Blender. So let me go and switch the scene, there we go. So this is the setup. It's actually not too complicated. Just one night I was talking with some people and I was like, you know what, I should go and use the raycast node to make a kind of X-ray effect, using a little skeleton and arm thing. So I had to rig the skeleton, which was not too bad. The main issue was making it so that the skin did not clip into the bones. But I had to go and do like the radius and ulna right there separately, using some bones to help guide it, making the arm twist and everything. It was a very good exercise. I would recommend doing it. But yeah, rigging skeletons, it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world, but it wasn't too bad. But yes, the main part here is the shader. So here is the new raycast node. It is very similar to the previous ray portal node, which I cannot search because I'm currently in Eevee. But it's like that, where you have a position and a direction, but you also get a length, and you get extra data like did it hit itself, the hit distance, the hit position, and the hit normal. There may be more options coming in later versions of Blender, but this is what we have for now, and it is so powerful. Oh, and you can make it so that it's only local. But it is so powerful. Oh, we can see we're getting a few glitches right there. Is that because of the motion blur? Oh no, it's not. Wonder why that part is glitching out. Wait, did I move the skin? I feel like I moved part of it. Oh no, okay. Well, that didn't happen before, so I'm just gonna Control Z. Okay. So I moved something. That's probably what, yep. I had both of them visible at the same time. But yes, so that is the step, and we'll go over all that in, well, actually right now. So, at least in Eevee, this works in both Eevee and Cycles. Let me go and switch over to Cycles. We can see it works quite well. But in Eevee, it has a little quirk, where it only works with the screen tracing at the moment, because that's all we have in Eevee at the moment. Now, the settings here, even if you have ray tracing disabled, this can affect the results. It should. Maybe it's not visible right now. But anyway, you need to have transparent objects for it to work with it firing through an object. So let's go and start from scratch and make it happen. Okay, so let's add in a new material and get the raycast node. So let's go and put this into here. And for the direction, we want this to look straight through the object into the skeleton, which is underlying. So we need to use the geometry incoming coordinate, but we need to scale it by -1. So if we do this and plug this into here, we can see that absolutely nothing correct will happen. And that is because we need to set the render method to blended, but we also need to make it so that the transparency is actually active. So we need to have a transparent mode and an emission node, and we just need to mix them a little bit to activate that. Now, you don't need to do this in Cycles, only in Eevee because of the way transparency works in a real-time rendering engine. But with that, we can see that it is working. We can see that the distance is affecting this, and it's looking through to the skeleton there. So now we can go and use a map range to go and edit this. Let's go and use a map range, plug that right into there, so that we can dial in the effect. So here we can go and make it so that there's more depth to it, so that's more like that. And then we can mix between different colors or whatever we want. Hello to everyone in the chat. I hope you're having a fantastic day today. But there we go. So let's change this so that, actually let's invert this gradient to make it have a bit more sense. But there we go. With that little setup, we've got an effect very similar to the one that we had before. And then we can go and mix this. I'm gonna press Control H to go and hide everything else there. So yeah, we can go and put those into a nice frame. Always have the lines and the boxes. That's how everything should work. But we can go and do that. And then, let's see, do I add? Yeah. Let's go and add, or maybe, let's go and add in a principled node just so that we can get some reflections going. I'm still unsure if I should use an add shader or just mix between the emission. Yeah, I'm actually not too sure. But if we do this, we can see that we get the nice part right there. That looks pretty good. Now you may see that there are a few little issues right here, and you may want to turn on backface culling just so that it is perfect. Oh, yep, there we go. That is the effect. Now you can just hone it in, make it however you want. There we go. But I want to do more with this. I don't want it to just be depth-based, even though that is good. I want it to be a little bit better. And also, I'm going to throw in a square root just to make it look a little bit better. Again, the demo file is up on Blender's website. The link is in the chat. Yeah, that just makes it fall up a little bit better, I think. Yeah, there we go. So, actually, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make this a little bit better by... Yeah, let me flip this around. Just a little bit of cleanliness. And have another mix shader to mix between the emission and the principled. So, right here, we can just have that in there. And I hope I set this up correctly. Maybe I need to flip it around. Which one? There we go. That should be it. Yeah, let's make... Should that be green or should that be black? Make that black. Let's make this one... Let's see, more of the green. There we go. That's a little bit simpler and not as confusing. Again, this part is only for the pass-through. Or should... Yeah. In Eevee. So again, it needs to be the blended mode. Unfortunately, dithering doesn't really work, unfortunately. So it is only blended with a little bit of transparency. And then with cycles, it just works off base. So you don't need to worry about that. But yes, the real power is it being an Eevee. So yes, the raycast node. I think it's a very, very good node. I like it a lot. Yep, with that, we have that. And we could do a bit more. Wait, is backface calling on? Oh, transparency overlap, I would recommend turning that off as well, just because that hides a few of the errors from there. So it'll act like a solid object, but you'll be able to see through to whatever is beneath it. But there is more we can do. There is more. So let me go and make this a little bit simpler again and set this to be like 1 or so. Yeah, that's pretty good. We can go and dither the ray direction in order to make it look blurry, like a frosted glass effect. So if we go and do this, and then we use a nice white noise texture, and I'm just going to plug the incoming into here so that these two are synced up, but maybe 2D noise using the window coordinate would be better. We'll just use this for now for simplicity. Then I'm going to use a mixed color node set to linear lights. Now, this is just so that the white noise, which goes from 0 to 1, will offset this in the positive and negative directions. I could use a vector math subtract by 0.5 and then a scale and then add it into there. But this is one node. It's simpler to do. But if we do this, we can see that we're getting a very nice blur effect. Though I should mention that this is where the precision thickness comes into play. Even if this is disabled, it will affect the result. So just keep that in mind. That is a little quirk with it, just because it is, again, a raycast, and that's the ray tracing method. So I would recommend turning this up more so that it gets closer to cycles, but it's not entirely necessary. So what else should I do? Let me go and change this to black, and then this one to a nice red or orange. I don't know, does that make it a bit brighter and do all that? Let me go and reduce the amount of blur. I don't know. Because that, if we set this to be 0, we just get the blur for that. But if we switch this to cycles, we can see that the result is very, very different just because it seems to be bouncing quite a bit in there. I do need to do more research with like the light path with the light path node to see how this data can interact with this to give different results. Because I think if I can like trace the amount of bounces it has and limit it to 1, I could make Eevee and Cycles match completely. So that I could have the thickness be high because that helps with other things. But have it not, you know, affect that part all too much. But for now, it's working just fine. So yes. And some people asked when I first posted this, how different is this from just using Refraction and the skeleton inside? And for that, I would say, it's not all too different. This one is just much more art directable. You can change the colors and everything on the fly, and it just helps a lot. Oh wait, I forgot to showcase the different outputs here. I am just doing this live, so I'm doing everything on the fly. But here we can get the, let me turn off the blur. We can get the hit position in global space, and we can also get the hit normal. Now the hit normal, that could be used for many cool things, like again, using a layer weight node or a Fresnel node, because, well, we have both options here. Plug in the hit normal. Oh, also, if you try to like use the viewer connection, it will not work because it won't use the transparency. So you need to plug it into there to make it so that you can see the results, which is just a little quirk with it. But again, if you were to use Cycles, you would not have that issue. So maybe it's good to like preview things in Cycles and then go over to Eevee if you're making a real-time effect. Yes, there we go. But yeah, and that could be, you know, useful for making other kinds of things. But yeah, that is working quite well. What else should I go over? Oh, right, the animation. So for the animation of this rig, it was really funny. Let me go and also turn on the depth again so that we see that. Oh, that looks really cool. Imagine a character that just had that shader. That is a very nice looking color scheme. Go and turn on the blur again so that we can get a little bit of blurring to the depth. That's pretty cool. Though I think I should use the facing into here to affect the result. Oh yeah, that looks pretty cool, but it's actually a little hard to tell what's going on. There we go, yep. And then I could also throw on a 1- to invert the Fresnel, or the layer, the facing. I keep calling that Fresnel because it does a very similar effect. There we go, and then we do that, and then we get, again, a very nice blur. Okay, so the rig. So for this rig here, I did something a little bit cursed using the geometry attribute constraints. So right now, the fingers and I believe a bit of the wrist is being driven by geometry nodes. So if I move this thing over here, we can see that the hand... Oh, that might be very difficult to see on the stream. We can see that the hand will move... Come on, buddy. Nope. There we go. We can see that the hand will move according to where I move this empty in relation to this mesh here. Because with geometry nodes, I just decided, you know what, let's go and try something. And turns out it does work, though maybe not the best way. Where I just take the distance to the empty, and that according to the points, and then that'll affect each finger based on that. Again, we have all of that going on. And then on the rig here, let's see. Oh, I should also mention that this will not be in the demo that's up on Blender's website. It's just baked down for that, just for simplicity's sake. But it uses words, sorry. Dang, I'm tripping over my own tongue. I'm speaking way too fast. It uses the geometry attribute constraints on each finger, looking at a different sample index to go and get the data from the points to drive the animation. So that is what's going on there. I think if I used traditional rigging techniques where I just had a bone moving around and then had a driver set up for all that, it would be better and maybe even easier to set it up that way. But I was like, you know what, my brain is going with geometry node, so I'm just gonna do that. Probably not the best way, but it works. It works. Probably a lot slower than drivers though too. Let's see. Let's go and read the chat. Let's see. Does the raycast node in shading work the same as geonodes? They work similarly, but not the same. With geometry nodes, it works on each point, and then it goes and reads parts on the mesh, and then you can get other data. Well, with this, it's per pixel. So each pixel on your screen fires, and then hits whatever mesh is there. They work in a very similar method, but not the same. Like, the way you interact with it is quite different, just because... Yeah, with geometry, it just works on points, and then the points on a mesh interpolate, while with here, it's every single pixel. So it's, yeah, it's different. Go back into cycles. Again, it is very much like the ray portal node. Here we go. So we can see here, they both have a position in a direction. I forget if the direction is normalized internally, but with this one, the direction is not, I forgot about that. So you need to normalize the vector going into the direction because that will affect the length. Well, I think for here it's probably not the biggest deal. Yeah, I cannot really tell the difference. Okay. Another technique. Let's go and... Should I do another example? Yeah, let's go and make another example here. So I'm going to make a plane, and I'm going to make a pseudo like ocean shader where you can see like a bit of fading between that and that. So let's go and set up the effect again, because I want to demonstrate how to use the angle of the surface and compensate for that. It'll make sense in a little bit once I get it set up. So again, emission, transparent. Let's go and mix these two. 0.001, put that into there. Change this to be blended. Don't forget that. Then we need the incoming. And then scale by -1, plug it into there. And then here we're going to have the hit distance again, map range, plug this into the emission. So here we can see the depth to the cube, which can lead to some very cool stuff. But for here, let's see, what do I want it to do? Actually, let's plug it into the emission, so we can have that be like that. Or actually, wait, just flip these two around. That we can have a very nice, again, like ocean fading effect. Nope, that's the transparency. Let me change this to here. That works well, but there is a slight issue where we also need to compensate for the shadows, because in Eevee Next, dealing with shadows is a bit more of a pain than Eevee Legacy. We don't have a nice convenient checkbox to disable the shadows. This will just make it so that everything is shadowed. So we need to go and use the is shadow ray in here to disable shadows for this. So we can see that it now works out just fine. If we turn off transparent shadows, it just turns everything into a shadow, which is a little counterintuitive to the previous behavior. But it's what we have. So let's go and bring this over to here, here, and here, and we have all that. So one problem that people might face is that when you look at this at an angle, the apparent depth isn't working the way you want it to. It gets much more shallow, while here there's actual depth to it. Wait a minute, why is this? Alright, transparent shadows needs to be on. Let's set this to be 0.5. So again, we see that that happens. If we want to compensate for that, we also go and change this to be, plug this into here so we can actually see the gradient well. Oh, yep. So to fix that gradient, we need to dot product the geometry normal with the hit distance. So we need to dot product the incoming with this, and then we need to divide the hit distance by the inverted dot product. So I know this is complicated and I have explained it very poorly, which is just a result of us doing this live. Wait, should be working now, but maybe it's not. Let me go and double check this. Like that, nope. This should fix it for a majority. Actually, no, that is not working. Let me double check this. Wait a minute. Why is the normal not appearing? Hello? Greater than... Sorry, everyone. I will go and debug this real quick. Okay, no, it is working. Okay. Well, that should do that, and then if I invert it, it should equal that. This is an optional thing. You don't need to worry about it in most cases. No, the incoming is doing a -1, and then the geometry normal should be doing that. And this should be Z. And the incoming should be doing that. So yeah, no, that should work. But instead of subtract. No, in this case, this is just to invert the dot product. But this part... This part should be correct. The thing I'm trying to do is simply divide the hit distance by the angle. So that if it is aligned, it'll be correct, and then here it'll go and extended so that we don't have that shortening. That appears. But I don't know why it is not doing what I want it to. Because I've done this before. Like at this glancing angle, this value should be very close to black, but it's not doing that. So I need to figure out why. And then here it should be like that. Alright, that's what I meant to try. So here it should be like that, and then... Oh, wait. Was it because that was negative? Is that what is throwing everything off? Maybe. Maybe. That should be... Yeah, that should be set to 1, and then that should be like... Exactly that. With that, I don't need to do the one... Is incorrect. Wait, is that... I think that might have fixed it. Maybe I just had the wrong setup? Maybe it... Well, that seems to be working now. Okay, so I had that wrong. So, let's see. If I do that and that so that we use the same incoming. Again, this is the normal. Sorry for the little hiccup right there. Should have reviewed that before the stream. There we go. Okay. So, I'll stay mostly the same, but at really glancing angles, it will still compress. So, let me try this one more time. Wait, why? Am I just scaling that by -1 just mess it up? Well, I don't know. And also, let's set this to be like 100. Okay. Well, that does confuse me. I will not worry about it too much. I'll need to look at the proper way of doing that. But that seems to fix the length, and then if we use a map range and then set that to be there, we can see that the distance does not change for that. I'll need to look into that. But anyway, now that we have that, we can go and make our little ocean shader look a little bit better. So let's go and have one for the transparency and then one for the color. Do we have this as a color ramp? Or a mix RGB? Let's do a mix RGB. Mix color. Plug that into there. Is this working the correct way, or is it... Should work just fine. So we'll have that into the blues, and then closer to this, it'll be more white. There we go. A bit better. Or is it? There we go. A little bit better. So now if you wanted to make a very customizable and art directable ocean shader, you could do something like that. Where the fall off, let's make that a little bit less. Because this looks a little bit too harsh, but maybe that's better for water. If you want to like mix the normals, you could do that. Oh yeah, no, you could do that. Wait a minute, I'm going to try a few things here. So I'm going to use it principled, the SDF, and then I'm going to affect the normal, and mix between the geometry normal and the object normal, based on the hit distance. Wait, this could lead to something quite cool. Let's see now. I'm just having fun right now. So let's go and mix vectors based on the distance. So if I set this up correctly, you should see that yes, the normal is mixing from this to the cube. So in theory, this will give us a kind of surface tension effect. Potentially. Oh wow, that actually works. Look at that. Let me change this to be metallic so that we can really see what's going on here. Maybe that's a bit too much. 0.05. There we go. So here we can see, yeah, if you want a very quick surface tension effect. Here, let me also go and change the... okay. Maybe that's what's up. Just have that and that. So very nice little surface tension effect. There we go. That's better. So it's just a shader trick, but it does work quite well. 5. Want that little extra push to make your water shaders look a little bit better. And then also the depth fade. This also makes me wonder if the ray portal node could be made to work in Eevee, but I assume that there is some weird technical constraints with all that. But yep. Alright, that's good. So let's take a look at the other demos I've been working with the ray portal node. So let's be right back, and I will go over to, let's see, the raycast laser. Now this I was working on a few days ago, where you can go and use the ray portal node to make a cool little laser effect, or to be more accurate, a shadow effect, where you see in like little indie games and all that, objects that are moving around have a nice little shadow that is raycast from the center, and now you can do that in Blender. We're getting techniques that game development people have been using for decades, but it's very, very nice to have. We can make tons of little NPR things rather than everything being rigidly physically accurate. But you can make customizable shadows, or as we saw before, a very nice laser effect. Now, I need to mention again that since this is screen traced, there will be some errors that occur because of that, as we can see here. If we turn the thickness down, it gives a kind of less accurate results. Yeah, so just keep the thickness up to a relatively high value. I recommend that in Eevee just off base. Just makes the reflections a little more acceptable. But if we go into cycles, we can see that it is absolutely perfect. Yep, all that is very nice and doable. There are so many more things that I think are possible with this node, but I need to go and play around with it. Let's see, this is going to be super useful for amber and other depth-based effects. Imagine the parallax. Yes, and crystals as well. That's something I want to try. Because you saw with the... Oh yeah, let's go to the other skeleton effect. Sorry, one second as I go and look at all of this. Oh, it's so good. Funnily enough, I didn't expect it to work an orthographic view. I thought that the rays would just clip through, but no, it actually works. Imagine the like super cool looking shadows you can get. Because with this gray, oh, and I should show how this was made. So you take the position of the geometry and the location of the object. That's how you get the direction vector. Normalize that because the direction is not normalized internally. Get the length, plug that into there. Get if it is a hit, and then all that is good. If it's less than a certain amount. But we could also get the hit distance. And... oh, wait, yeah. Disable that so we can see the data. There we go. We can see here, if I were to use a greater than, we can get the distance from there and all that. So, well, actually, no, the hit distance from there doesn't really matter. You can do some really funky things with all this. where, let's see, if we invert this, we can get like the hit distance from, there should be a way of getting the hit distance from the shadow area. But I remember being a little frustrated when I was like, wait, is it this way? Is it this way? Is it that way? Is it that way? Playing around with a lot of that, but it's fine. We don't need to worry about that. Let's go over to the full skeleton raycast effect. So let's not save this while I'm going editing it. Let's go over to the full skeleton. Now this one is not rigged. It's a fully separate model than the one I was trying before. This is my little demo scene for all that. Let's go to that. Let's get, there we go, there we go. So here we can see that I'm using the, let me get the stream chat back up. It is using the raycast node with a similar effect and just making it look a little bit better. So here it's a similar setup, but we can see that the depth, oh yeah, the depth is probably wrong from our previous testing. Actually, the geometry normal, yeah, no, that should have worked. But from what I know now, this is inaccurate. I'm using the dithering and doing all of that to make this look blurred beneath the surface. If I disable that, still looks good, but just a little bit, I don't know, less good. You don't get that nice sense of depth, almost like it's a volumetric material, even though it's not. And I'm so glad we can do this in Eevee fast, because stuff like this would be so annoying to do with actual volumes. It would be so incredibly expensive. But yep, there we go there, and all that. We can change the ray depth and all that. Let's turn off the ambient occlusion. I'm using just a texture to give the sense of like veins underneath the surface to make this look like a real character. And I want to see this, try it on like actual characters. I should try this out. Like seeing the ribcage from the glowing interior, that's some good character design right there. But yes, what else was it gonna do? Oh, right, I just remembered. So another thing that can be done here is dithering an almost iridescent color based on with the white noise. So let me go and get that. I need the texture coordinate. Let's go and get the camera or the window. I think the window. Set that to be 2 dimensions just because it's actually faster. Should be at least a little bit faster. But we can use this color to determine the actual color of the blur. So let's go, and I'm going to just simplify all this so that my brain doesn't get really annoyed by it. But if we connect this into there, we should see... Dang it. Ah, there we go. We can see that the blurring is kind of iridescent in a way. Here, let's go and boost the saturation and change the hue so that we get something that looks kind of nice. Should it be inverted, where that's like that and then that's like this? Oh yeah, that looks a bit better. But yep, with this, since we're blurring the ray direction by a colored noise, this noise can now be used to actually just be the color to make a very nice RGB effect. See there, yeah, that looks pretty good. Go and turn up the samples right here, set it to be like 64. We can get more resolve to result. Oh, and by the way, denoising does nothing for regular noise there, which I think is fine. Like usually in Eevee Next, you want denoising to be off. Like only have spatial reuse if you need it. Don't turn these on. It ruins metals or anything with screen-based reflections. They just get so blurry. But yes, and also turn the resolution to 1:1. Always have that on 1:1. But if you're worried about the speed of your Eevee projects, just turn down the shadow resolution. These seem to be the most expensive part of Eevee. Just turn that down as low as you can get it. The steps and the rays don't seem to affect it all too much. Okay. But with this, yeah, what else can we do? What else can we do with it? I do like the iridescence. That is so nice. Again, you could probably do this with a bit of refraction, but this just feels, it's just more art directable. Then if we turn it up almost all the way, it looks like, I don't know, I've seen, like, I don't know, it's like a glittery gel or something. Yeah. Let me go and turn up the samples just so that it resolves. Yeah, no, that's, I've seen something like that before, but that's pretty cool. Turn back down to 64. We could still also get the hip position and all of that, which means, oh wait, I forgot to show that. We can just straight up apply like a separate texture to this. So here, let me go and turn that part off. Here we can see that the skeleton now has a checker texture on it. Just because we get the hip position and then we can do that. We can't sample like the UV map of the surface because we can't sample arbitrary attributes, though I believe that was mentioned as like a possible future feature. But what we have currently is already very, very, very good. Yep, there we go. So it is quite customizable. Look at that. Almost feels like we're doing compositing, but in the viewport. And then, yes, we can also blur that as well. That is so cool. Like, the actual object looks like that, but just with this node, we're sampling that, applying a virtual texture to it, and blurring it all at the same time. That's so cool. Just one node, and it feels like my workflow is going to be revolutionized. And again, we have, oh, the denoising is not playing well with that. Just because I assume it's trying to get like the normal and it is not matching. But it does work in cycles. That's what I meant. So, yes. Quite good. Quite good. Get this up and running again. For some reason, being able to see the skeleton is so incredibly cool. Blender 5.1? Yes, this is the Blender 5.1 beta, which you can download on Blender's website if you just go to the experimental tab. It'll probably be out in like a month or two, because right now they're just doing bug fixes for about a month. Then it'll be out. It will be out for everyone to use. And then Blender 5.2 is an LTS release, which, hey, look forward to that, because there's probably going to be a lot of cool things in there. Yep. Okay. I've only been going for 37 minutes. Wow. I felt like I've been going for a lot longer. Look at that. That's so cool. I do want to try fixing the distance. So to do that the way I had it before, I'll double invert the vector just to make that the same. And then the hit distance, I need to multiply by the dot product. The geometry normal. Oh, this feels... I need to actually look into how to do this for real, because that is not great whatsoever. Let's turn the blurring to 0. Oh, that definitely feels more consistent, I think. If we go and turn this off, we look at the glancing angles. Go and take a look from there. So yeah, there is a difference, but it's rather subtle. Why is that part getting darker? I don't know, maybe that's helping? Maybe it's just that this is a very round surface and the discrepancy isn't really anywhere near that bad. Oh, and that part's very trippy. Go and get a mesh plane and then apply the same shader to that. Which one is it? Skin or Skin 01? Skin 01. Whoops. Okay, so at glancing angles... Okay, so it is working. So this is it without the glancing angle compensation, and that is with it. That does help. I just need to figure out the right way to do it, because for some reason... When I had the inverted one being put into there and then one my... Oh no, I need to set it to -1. Dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it. I needed to multiply it by -1. Right? There we just take the result and then do that. And then the 1 minus, and then the divide would have worked, but just multiplying it seems to work better. Okay, I think I get it now. Though, no, multiplying should be fine. Yeah, that's probably how it works. Just go and double check that. I think it's working. And then I should turn off the square root there. And right there. Okay, it should look the same whether it's like that or like, yeah, I think it's working. Okay, so, dang it. To delete just that, okay. So yeah, you dot product the direction with the normal, multiply by -1, and then multiply the distance. That is how it should go. And then square root it. Square root, square root, square root. Hello. Ooh. Ah, there it is. There we go. Very cool. Okay. The raycast is phenomenal. How would you say does the Eevee version compare to Cycles? How limiting is the screen space limitation? Okay. Depending on what you do, it can either be very limiting or not super limiting. Like in here, there are basically very few limitations because we're using this just like modified transparency. Everything, because this is set to blended, it's acting like a regular transparent object, where the renderer is still seeing the skeleton just fine and then overlaying, almost like compositing, the sky on top. So in here, there's basically no limitations. The limitations are when the raycast tries to see something that the camera does not see, at least in Eevee. Because in that case, it tries to rely on the thickness to compensate, or it just fails. But Cycles can handle that. So there's not too much that's different. Too much. Okay, hello, quick question. Do you know Blender is on Steam and you can launch watch many versions of Blender on it? Blender is on Steam, though I've never used it on there. I personally just like my Blender completely disconnected from any other launchers. Just because I like how independent Blender is. I don't need a launcher. I don't need it, it's less than a gigabyte, or it's a gigabyte right now. It's less than 2 gigabytes. There we go. I like how light and useful Blender is. I don't need to log in or anything. Oh, I just love Blender. But I know people who do use it with Steam, and apparently it is good. Like, you can get auto updates and all that, which is very nice. I think Blender should have an auto update feature, because they have that for extensions, but not for the actual program itself. Maybe it's because, like, it would need to recompile or something like that. But yeah, I think at least for non-major versions, like 5.1.1, 5.1.2, and all that, for little bug fixes, I think there should be an auto update feature for that, just so that if there is a bug that the devs missed, people won't need to like manually do that. And then, that would be a opt-in feature, not a, by default. Kind of like the extensions as well. Again, programs like Audacity and that already have that built in. It's like, oh, that's actually very convenient. Yeah. Self-updates still need Wi-Fi access. Yeah, that's why it would be an opt-in feature, not a by default always in. Does Blender 5.1 crash like crazy? There was a version of 5.1 I was using when I was actually making this effect that would crash every 5 minutes. No, every 2 minutes. So I was just saving every time I did anything. But it seems like they fixed that now. I pulled today's build, so it should be good. For the next month, they will be doing bug fixes. So if you run into any bugs, make sure to report them. Make sure you can isolate the error and all that. then, yeah, report the bug. But yeah, that's that. I think we're pretty much at the end of the stream today. I do need to try some more things with the raycast node because it is so incredibly powerful. Just getting all that. I am glad that I figured out what I was doing wrong with the dot product and everything, because that was a little bit quirky right there. Let's see, bones. Look at all the bones. And I guess another limitation is that compared to cycles, I don't think we would be able to stack them the same way. Or maybe we could. Because if I get the hit normal, I could use that for the next direction. Okay, this might be a horrific idea. But you can stack these nodes. It just might be a really bad idea. If I were to plug this into the emission, plug this into there. Okay. So we get the direction from there. This is there. Let's just go and see what happens. So you could make like a pseudo reflection. Like this is just making a pseudo oh, that actually works. I knew that would work. I just didn't think it would work so well in Eevee. So if I wanted to make a fake reflection setup, that would function. Which means, in theory, refraction would work as well. Oh wait, that's actually something I need to try. So let's go back to, let's make this a testing round again. Let's go and eliminate everything that is not strictly needed here. So what I want to try, I can get the incoming and then, I can get the incoming and then I can use the normal to refract. So if we use a refract vector math node, this should work exactly the same as before. Let's go and plug this through there. But here we have that, but if I increase the IOR, this should work like the refraction node, and it does. 1.5. So here we can also do that. I knew that would work. If we invert that, yeah, no, it has to be like this. So we take the view vector, which is the incoming scaled by -1, and then that, and then we can get that. So again, this is incredibly customizable, which I love so much. Let's use a map range. Wait, huh? How did it map range? How did it get square root from that? Okay. Here, oh, that is absolutely terrifying. Oh my gosh. Do that, we can have... Something's telling me the refraction isn't quite right, because it should look more... Look more like that. But actually, no. That is terrifying. I'm scaring myself with that. Maybe that's the right way? And also with this, we could do another level of reflection. We can do a reflection on top of that. Wow. Okay. Okay. We can change all that. So incredibly trippy. Let's see. Oh, we got a spammer in the chat. You're gone. Let's see. Yeah, well, let's just hide the user on this channel. Yeah, that'll be good. I don't like the spam. Let's see. Okay. Dang, look at that. Wow. I can see the parallax. It is... Wait, this is almost like a caustic. Why is this acting like a caustic almost? Like, look at the... Wow. And then we can also, again, get the hit normal from that, and then do another thing of reflection, and then plug that into there. So this will still reflect, even though that is being dithered to hell and back. There we go. We have 42 people here. Wow. Hello, everyone. Hope I'm not making this super terrifying with all the skeletons. With all the spooky, scary skeletons. Let's have this be an emission again. We'll plug that into there. Oh yeah, and that's stacking on top. That. Hilarious. Yeah, no, let's plug you into the strength so that we have this overwrite that. And we can have that be anything we want. Hilarious. Hilarious. Be one or that, and then, yeah, no, that is fascinating. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. 5. There we go. That to be one. Yeah, let's just go and bump that up a ton. It's so cool. Almost looks like a spider right there. And yeah, it does almost look like caustics. So weird. I didn't think that caustics would work on this. Because for caustics, we need to stack differently. But maybe because I'm doing like a pseudo refraction, it's doing it. Okay. Let's read the chat again. Let's see. What keybind did you use to swap the two sockets? This is, if you have Node Wrangler enabled, you press Alt S and then it'll swap. But only if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. Let's see, make it green like uranium bones. Yep. It looks so alien. So cool. With this I am using aces for the color space. Let's see. Might work for deep sea type camera renders. Oh yeah, like the Iron Lung camera. Alright, let's go and connect the hip position to... Oh, nope. There we go. Here again to see how the... Set that to be 1 of 1. Okay, so again... Here we have the refraction happening and then a reflection happening on top of that. Then we do this, then we can see that, but it's so faint you can barely tell. Ooh. Okay. I think that is all for now. I can't think of anything else to try just yet. Even though that does... Wow, look at all of that. So trippy. Try this in cycles. Oh, that looks a little bit different. I'm going to assume that's from like internal reflections, which if we go and scale this by self hit. Ah, okay. Check Eevee, because let's see. Oh no, I want this so that if it's not a self hit. So invert with a 1-. Here's that, and then if we disable that, it makes... Oh yeah, no, it makes no difference because in Eevee, it cannot self-hit because it'll just pass right through. Here, again with that or with that. Okay. So that would make it more like Eevee, where if it hits itself, it'll just be like, nope, never mind. Then only local will do that, which means that it'll never show anything. That'll be that. Okay. So here we can see, if I had 2 raycasts, where one was only local, and one was not, and then subtract the 2, it would only leave the other stuff. Or, yeah, maybe that's not the best idea. Okay. Let's go and... I don't know, what else? I'm gonna go back to the arm. Just so that we can end on that note. So again... Let's see. Alright. So this file, once again, is available on Blender's website. The link is the first thing in the live stream chat. So go pick it up if you want. It's a very nice setup. It's cleaner than the one you're seeing here because this is just the example. But yes, so many cool new things are possible with this one little node. It's so cool. So incredibly cool. Let's see. You could probably put a plane in front of the camera and use raycast on it for some crazy post-processing, similar to ways some people do with Refraction / Ray Portal. Yes, 100%. Actually, yeah, let's go and do that as one of the last things for this project. So if we have a plane in here, and then I'll go and parent another plane to the camera, we can make our own kind of post-processing compositing effects. So I'm just going to go and lazily copy this. Oh, and also, don't forget, in Blender 5.1, you can copy things through one blend file to another, which is so nice. I've already used it, and I was like, yes, it was so incredible. So, raycast. There we go. Let's make this a scale node, and then the incoming... Go put that into there, and here we can see, should be able to see only transparent shadows. Why are you not functioning? Hello. Oh no, it is functioning. It's just that this is below. Wait, fraction. Oh, -1, right. So here we can see that this post-processing effect will just, yeah, just do whatever we want. So we can get the hit position and then, like, use a checker texture on it or whatever we want to basically do a material override, essentially. Now you will see that it will ignore all blended transparent objects. That's just how transparency works in Eevee. But if we go over to cycles, we can see that it doesn't have that problem. So that is basically the main limitation. Eevee will ignore reflections and cycles will not. So it's a strength that cycles has that Eevee does not. And we have all that, and then what else? What else? Again, the hit normal, it just gives you that, so another nice post-processing thing. Yeah, no, it's all that. The hit distance, again, if I were to go and, let's use a wrap node. Let's see. Yep, that is that. What else? This could be used for so many cool shaders, but I think I've had enough ideas for today. So again, thank you all for watching. Ask your last questions now, because we are pretty much at 1 hour. Let's see. You can use it with a sort of impact frame. Yeah, no, that could work. It's like, it just allows for, I guess, in-camera compositing, but getting more data. Yep. Any news on XPPD? They're working on it. Yeah, that's basically all I know. When will rigid bodies come to geometry nodes? They're working on it. That's all I know. But yeah, those will come. It's just taking a bit longer than expected, just because... Or no, it's taking I don't think it's taking longer than expected. I think things are still... I don't think there was ever a set date where it was supposed to become a part of Blender. There were the experimental builds, which I showcased. Let me get that right. Just, I don't want to set false expectations for anyone. Yep. Let me also hide the baked version. There we go. Yep. I do actually, because in Blender 5.1 there is a new like matrix node which makes getting the inertia tensor a lot easier. So I do need to revisit my rigid body setup and edit a few things. Let's see. Have you heard about the pixel depth offset PR? Yes, I have. Seems useful for some Eevee displacement and NPR effects like eyebrows in front of hair. Yep, and I think the raycast node could probably help with that. Like the ray portal node, I think it's possible for that to work in Eevee, because it is just... it could work like transparency. But I'm not sure. Yeah. What's up next? Any more feather stuff planned? Not at the moment. I don't really have a plan for my next projects. Like this one, I just made on a whim because I was just like, oh, let's see if the raycast node can do that. And turns out it can, and it was quite good, and it turned out quite well. People really enjoyed this project. But nothing for feathers at the moment, because feathers, I feel like feathers are kind of a solved problem for me at the moment. Like, I can generate them. Like, you could just turn, if you want to sculpt feathers, you can use, like, the hair curves, and then instance a feather on each hair curve, matching the origin point and the end point of the curve. That's not too difficult. Simulating them can be a little bit of a pain, but I have a setup for that now. Yeah. I wish we could measure distance to specific objects. Yeah, like with this one, no matter what exists, it'll always be visible through the object here. Unless I made an internal volume that was like backface cold, that would always limit it. So that could work. Maybe that could be a thing. Oh, right. Outlines. So, okay, this will be the last thing for today. So I'm going to copy this, X this out. And then, where's the... I'm going to displace this by a little bit. You could displace this in the shader and it'll probably work out just well. I'm not going to do that. Just going to displace this by a bit. Because with the raycast node, you can also fade. Go and let's see. Case calling and shadow. I'm just going to invert this. Oh, yep, no, it is working. So when people would make like cartoony outlines, there would be some pinch points, which where they would just cut off very quickly. I think we can get around that using this. Or if we just go and eliminate everything besides view, this should be able to make a nice fall off for that, though I am not entirely sure. Oh, yep, no, that works. So here we can see on this pinch point right here, right there, and a few others, if we just go and turn this up, make it so that it fades between the two, we get a very nice outline with no pinching. So again, if we set this to be 0, we can see quite a bit of pinching, while here it just eliminates that. That is another really good thing, are the outlines and all that. Right here is a very good example. And if we set this to be 0, 0, lots of pinching, and ignore the way the arm twists up there. The post for that was very annoying, and I just stopped working on that. But here, yes, this kind of fading. I remember a Kirby game had this, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, instead of fighting with that, we can now make this look really good. And you can still see, because this is backface cold, you can still have the original object doing whatever. And if I wanted to make this even more customizable, make this work. So I could just make geometry nodes to duplicate the instance of this object, invert the normals, and then displace it in the shader to make it as fast as possible. So it would be better. Yeah, and then I could just apply that on all the objects, yeah. That's another cool thing. Oh, what is that? Oh, the normals must be having some feedback right there. Oh no, the mesh is just broken. Ignore that, ignore that. It's fine, it's fine. All right, here. A very nice outline without the myriad of errors that are very common with that. Oh, actually, yeah, well, look at that. Set that to be 0. So before you would see all those very gross errors. Ew, ew. But now it's a lot better. You can still see there's a few errors there, but they fade into existence. So it's a lot better. No compositing needed, which means that if you zoom out or zoom in, it'll stay the same size. I guess the only other parts that are still error prone are these glancing angles, but you could just Fresnel that away. All the pinch points that you can't get with Fresnel are now gettable with this. Actually, yeah, let's try a layer weight. There, get the facing, plug it into there. Not quite. Subtract. Yeah, no, that part's not working all too well. Never mind. But yep, it's a cool node. A cool node. Let's see. Let me read the chat one more time. Okay. I'd love for advanced rigs that can actively change with geonodes, so you can edit the nodes and keyframe the changes. Oh, that would be a nightmare to code. But it would be kind of cool. I guess you can have a giant switch set up in order to make that happen. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. There's the walk mode. Yep. But yep, that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed. This is a fantastic node. The special thanks to the dev who worked on it. This is amazing. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.